nonprofit advocacy group for the St. Johns River.
And our mission is to help protect the river.
Hello, welcome once again to the St. Johns Riverkeeper Show, the most exciting half hour on television. I'm Jimmy Ortt, the Executive Director of St. Johns Riverkeeper, and I'm here today with Kelly Savage, our Community Outreach Director. Thanks for coming on, Kelly.
Hello, everybody.
And we're going to talk today about St. Johns Riverkeeper, some of the issues affecting the river, and we're actually going to get into some really fun stuff about how you can get out and enjoy the St. Johns. Kelly, before we start the show, I always like to let folks know that may not be familiar with who we are. Give them a little background about St. Johns Riverkeeper. Could you please tell the folks a little bit about us?
St. Johns Riverkeeper is a nonprofit advocacy group, and we fight in behalf of the St. Johns River, who doesn't have a voice. So we try to be that independent voice that looks out for the river and makes sure that it's being taken care of and enjoyed for everybody.
Thank you, Kelly. Well, and one thing I always like to mention, make sure people realize that we are a membership-based group too. We are privately funded. We don't receive any government funding. We're not affiliated with a government agency. So we depend on you to help make this work possible. And as Kelly mentioned, we're an independent voice for the river. We are, some people characterize us as a watchdog group. We're the one there looking out for the St. Johns, representing the best interests of the river and the public to whom it belongs at public meetings and where decisions are made that affect the future of the river. We do things such as also trying to hold people that are polluting the river accountable and hold our regulatory agencies accountable to make sure that they're doing everything that they can to protect the river, to implement and enforce the law, which unfortunately sometimes is not happening. One of the things that we've talked about on past shows, just to give you an example of the type of work we do, is we fought for tougher nutrient standards. And one of the problems affecting the river, one of the biggest problems, we've talked about it several times if you follow this show, is nutrients, which are nitrogen and phosphorus. And we have too many nutrients going into the river, which are causing problems such as the algal blooms that we see on the St. Johns. And actually, Kelly, before we get started, start talking about some of the fun things to do on the river, I do want to kind of give an update on what's been taking place. We've been seeing a lot of problems already this summer associated with the river. One is the algal blooms and one is fish kills. We've gotten a lot of calls about that, haven't we?
We sure have. Calls, emails, pictures. We have a volunteer program, River Patrol, where people go out and take pictures and document these occurrences for us. And it's just been a really bad summer for the river. The river is so sick right now, and we've just been cataloging pictures all the way from Lake George all the way up to Jacksonville has been the highlighted area where there's a lot of problems going on with the bloom and just people seeing fish all over the river just floating belly up. It's a really sad state right now. Absolutely.
Well, we have actually some video. We showed this video on the last show, but in case you did not catch that show, I do want to show it again just so you can kind of see a state of the river, what we've experienced so far this summer. A lot of you may not have seen before. This is a video that actually AndyGLeverett, who's a supporter of ours and has won our PSA video contest actually 2 times now. Andy's a very talented videographer and filmmaker, and he put this together for us. I'm sorry for the graphic nature of it. If some people this might be kind of repulsive to you, but I think it's important that we see what is taking or has taken place out on the river. This was really one of, I would say, the most widespread fish kills that we've seen possibly ever on the St. Johns. As Kelly mentioned, the fish kills were reported from Lake George all the way up to Jacksonville. Thousands of fish, a lot of those fish actually redfish. And you see the fish kill hotline. If you do experience any fish, see any fish kills on the river, please do report that to the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, because it is important that we document this, and they have an opportunity to respond to these problems. It really was disturbing to see all of those fish. I know we went out and took a look at them and obviously investigated. To this date, unfortunately, well, one of the good things, I guess I should say, is that we're not seeing the problem like we did last month. So it does seem to have dissipated. There's not as many fish that are being reported as having died in the river. But the regulatory agencies don't seem to really know for sure what the problem is.
Yeah, and that's probably the most frustrating part, because I think everybody's looking for this one answer, and unfortunately I think it's a compound problem, and the river is sick in a lot of areas, and so we're just seeing signs of that, and the fish is one of those signs. So we are still awaiting toxicology reports, but who knows, what kind of definitive answer that will give us. But
right.
What we can say is that it's definitely a sign of a sick river.
Right, and one of the things that they have possibly attributed it to is toxins that are released from algae. And I know we've had in this same area of the river from Lake George to about the Buckman or so, we've seen some really bad algal blooms this spring and summer. We're going to show you some photos of those so you can see, and unfortunately we expect that this will continue through the summer. The conditions are right, it's getting hot, and these are some of the algal blooms that have been reported to us, photos that have been taken and sent in to St. John's Riverkeeper.
And what you notice is you see white, and that's an extreme case of a bloom there, because it's actually blooming so much that it's stacking on top of each other and it's dying off at the surface there, so it actually looks like paint, and it's a really bad bloom there. And
some of them that we've seen, obviously the one that we're most familiar with is where it's really kind of almost a neon green. We've seen those kind of problems as well. These photos here, I believe, were taken in the near the Shands Bridge, and then you'll also see that actually is a picture from last summer, and that is over next to this one right here is Bowles School actually. The one before that was Christopher Creek. This one here is one that was taken in Green Cove Springs this year. This is from Rice Creek. That's in Palatka. That's the where Georgia Pacific discharges their wastewater. And those three right there are all Rice Creek. And you can see obviously the algal bloom there, also with one of the unfortunate fish who died. The thing that we're, as we've mentioned on previous shows, is that this is caused by too many nutrients, and there's many sources. As Kelly said, it's hard for us to point our finger not only at what the cause of the fish kills, but also one definitive, cause of the algal blooms. What I always say when people ask who's to blame, and it's all of us. We need to look at ourselves and our neighbors and our friends. We all contribute to this problem. It comes from wastewater discharge from utilities such as JEA, from commercial sources such as Georgia Pacific, as we mentioned. It's also failing septic tanks, and then also something that we all individually have control over, for fertilizers. We put too much fertilizer onto our yard, it runs off into the river, and it does the same thing for algae that it does for grass, causes it to grow and grow out of control. And then what can happen when we see these algal blooms is it can cause some ecological problems as well. As not ecological, but also there's human health problems too. Yeah,
these are not typical plants that bloom every summer. This is part bacteria, part plant. So this in particular, this bloom is really harmful for all wildlife, including us. You can get a rash if it gets on your skin. It can cause respiratory problems. And St. Johns County and Duval County, I believe, have both issued health warnings for that exact reason.
And what they're recommending in that health warning was to just avoid, if you see an algal bloom or you see a fish kill, just to stay away from those areas if you can, and definitely in those areas where you see fish kills or algal blooms, it's recommended to not probably eat the fish either. So it's just being precautious. Keep your pets out of the water. Don't allow them to drink the water where there's algal blooms, and then of course don't allow your children or even yourself to be exposed to the water where there's algal blooms. Now that's unfortunate, and we're probably going to see more blooms throughout the summer. The conditions are all there. There's too many nutrients. It's hot. It depends on weather conditions, but we're probably expecting to see that. But in a lot of cases, those are in isolated areas of the river. It's not the whole 310 miles of the river. And there's still opportunities, great opportunities, to get out and experience and enjoy the river. So don't let some of these